It's time to enjoy a nice Pib Extra and record a short video. Welcome to the podcast. It is Tuesday evening. Last night, Joshua Dobbs, who I've supported since he came back to the league, pretty much screwed the Vikings out of victory. I'm going to look at that a little bit more to analyze Dobbs and see why he's so inconsistent, because he was playing well up to then, but that's not why I'm making a video today. So the Panthers went ahead and released Frank Reich, Deuce Staley, and Josh McCown. So they're no longer part of the coaching staff there in Carolina. And it was it's a little strange seeing the reactions on television. Frank Reich is a white coach that had been relieved of his duties before. And I figured that all of the mainstream networks who spew nothing but bullshit to divide people or try to stick with certain narratives, there was a lot of people very supportive of Frank Reich, and I'm very surprised by that. The name of the owner for the Panthers is slipping my mind right now, but I'll bet my son knows the answer. Let's see if I'm right. Hey, bud, what's the name of the owner of the Panthers? Look it up for me real quick, and then come out here and tell me. So I was wrong. He didn't know, but he's going to let me know the answer since I'm using my phone to record this. But there was a lot of people in the media who were very supportive of Frank Reich. They thought it was an overstep by ownership. They thought that, and there's conflicting storylines. I guess Reich wanted to go with C.J. Stroud, and ownership wanted to go in another direction for Bryce Young, and they're 1-10 right now. I have a lot of thoughts about it, but I think a lot of my thoughts are from a different perspective than most people. So, David Tepper, that's it. David Tepper. Because Tepper has been the owner of the Panthers since I think 2016 or 2017. He's already gone through, I think, 8 coaches, but some of that is like interim stuff. And one of the things that Keyshawn Johnson was talking about Tepper is he said, aside from Jerry Jones, who happens to also be the general manager of the Cowboys along with the owner, he'd never seen an owner go along with the GMs and the scouts to watch basically workouts of players that they might be looking to draft. He said that owners should just stick to being owners, and I think that's the comment of a retard. I think that's a dumb jock talking. I like Keyshawn Johnson. I don't think he's a woke idiot, even though he does say some things that seem a little bit sensitive, but I think he's a cool guy. He seems like a nice guy. I know him and Warren Sapp don't get along, but sometimes it's just like that with people. And I think that's a really dumb shit comment for Keyshawn Johnson to say, because the people who own football teams spend a lot of money on football players. It's ridiculous that a bunch of rich white guys pay black people generational wealth, and yet they're called racists. But one of the things I've noticed about the NFL owners is there are a lot of hands-off guys. There's a lot of guys that own teams just to tell their friends that they own a team, and they have fuck you money like that. But you have to understand that even rich people don't want to fucking have their money not spent well. And when you own a football team, you're investing in hopefully getting results from a player, which will get you wins and get you more fans coming to the game. And it's a big circle that it makes. There's also revenue sharing and everything that goes in with the collective bargaining agreements and all that. And I think it's pretty fascinating that none of the owners, except for Jerry Jones, who they accuse of overstepping his boundary a lot, and that's a fair criticism, they say that he should just sit back and let the people who know what they're doing do their jobs. And I think that's a crock of shit. I think more owners should be more involved with what goes on in their team. And I think more owners should be involved in listening to what the fans want, rather than everybody voting in unison to pay Roger Goodell $30 million a year, which is $500 million a year more than he should make. Roger Goodell is nothing but a corrupt piece of shit politician that should be burned at the stake. And unfortunately, he's the NFL commissioner, and he sat as NFL commissioner on the decline of football. The level of skill being portrayed in football is much lower than it was even as close as 10 years ago. You pretty much can't sneeze within 5 yards of any offensive player or it's going to be called a penalty. And there's not enough owners that are going to stand up and say, no, we want things to be done different. So if I was the owner of a football team, if I was the owner of an NFL team, I fucking for sure would go to every one of those workouts. And every person I interview, whether it's somebody I'm looking to draft, somebody that's coming in as a free agent, or even somebody that I might be talking to their management as a trade option, I'm going to ask them a couple simple questions. I'm going to say, how much do you love football? And don't give me a bullshit answer. I want a real answer. And I'm going to ask, how much do you love winning? Because what I don't want as an owner and paying a lot of money to people to go out and perform is I don't want a bus full of fucking guys laughing and joking 30 minutes after we just lost a heartbreaking loss. Like, I want motherfuckers that are furious. I wish that a Texans player went out for the post-game press conference after the bullshit job that the refs gave them against the Jaguars. And I wish he told all the reporters, get the fuck out of this room. You're not interviewing anybody. If you want to interview somebody, you can interview the refs, Roger Goodell, and Troy Vincent, the two guys who told the refs to call this game for the Jaguars. And until then, none of you get an interview with a single fucking Houston person. I wish ownership would do that. I wish ownership would have called Goodell in the middle of that game and said, I will fucking shut the lights out in this stadium. I will shut the lights out in this stadium until the Jaguars flight has to leave and we're gonna win on a forfeit. Or you can call the referees and tell them to call it down the middle because this is fucking bullshit. I wish there was more coaches that had desire like that as well. And I'm not saying that there always needs to be an overreaction, and a lot of times fans want to overreact to things, but I can't stand seeing Tennessee get 2 holding calls in a row and Mike Vrabel not lose his mind. I can't stand seeing DeMeco Ryans stand there while the refs fuck his team out of victory. I can't stand Sean McDermott and anything he does. I can't stand a lot of this stuff. And Eric Wood talked about it on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. He says a lot of guys don't like football. And if I'm an owner, I'm not going to pay you to do something you don't like because you're only going to put a minimum amount of effort in. I want motherfuckers that want to be here. I want motherfuckers that dream of football. And as much as I hated Tom Brady, at least that motherfucker had passion. So I think it's an unfair criticism of Tepper to say he shouldn't be on the road with the team. Now, do I think he's overreacting a little bit with a lot of these hirings and firings? Probably. But who knows where he goes from here? I'd like to see him be the first person besides Jerry Jones that comes as an ownership and says, like, no, I do give a shit. Robert Kraft, I thought was like that, but I can't tell anymore. I was told that he was like that, and that's why he brought a lot of success to Boston, but it might have just been Brady. I always thought it was 60 Belichick, 40 Brady, but I might be wrong. What they're doing in New England, it baffles me. I can't figure it out. So Frank Reich goes. Josh McCown's going to go back to being a high school coach because for like 3 years in a row, that's what he did. And then he would go play 6 seasons for a team who lost all 3 quarterbacks and then go back to coach in high school. Deuce Staley's going to get another opportunity as well. But I do like the fact that he's making changes because I think too often there's people who don't make changes fast enough. And I like what I see from there. Maybe he needs to be a little bit more patient. But on the flip side, I will say this. It's something I've said for a while, too. If I'm the head coach, the GM or an owner of a team, and I have to draft a quarterback first, our team was really bad and we have a high draft pick. If I'm drafting a quarterback in the first round, he is not starting until at least week 9. And it's going to be, and it has to be at least after our bye week. If we have an early bye week, great. If we don't have a bye week until week 10 or 11 or 12, he's not starting until after that bye week. I think it's detrimental to most quarterbacks who are new to the NFL to start right away. There are guys like Stroud and Burrow, Lawrence a little bit, who they can learn in that. But I think there are more guys who can turn out to be good quarterbacks, but they need to sit behind a veteran, even if it's just for half the season, and watch how things fold and watch how the game is different and watch how the speed of the game is different. And I think that when you drafted Bryce Young, even though the coach didn't want him, I think that should have been the red flag right there. Hey, Because if I'm Tepper, I'm going to say, listen, if you want to get CJ Stroud, his development is on you. I want Young, you want Stroud, but you're the one that's going to develop him because I'm not the expert. I'm just the guy that pays the money. But if I'm paying you, I'm expecting you to develop him. And if you don't, we're going to have to talk about this money not being well spent. So I think that is a little bit unfair that Reich is brought in to be the coach of the first pick, and then he ends up getting fired because of a poor performance of an untalented team with a quarterback who's not protected, not winning, and he didn't even want the quarterback in the first place. So at least the media is being fair about that. We'll see what happens moving forward with that team. It's going to be hard to get coaches in there because they're going to feel like it's a little bit of a no-win situation, and I can understand why they feel that way. But on the flip side, I respect the fact that this guy wants changes, and he's going to go do what it takes to get those changes. And as a Buffalo Bills fan, I've been waiting for them to get rid of McDermott for a long time. I honestly, and I know they just signed McDermott to a contract extension, I would honestly go to him and say, hey, listen, if you still want to coach in the NFL, that's fine. We need to break this contract because I'm going to make Joe Brady the head coach. I need an offensive mind as a head coach. I need somebody who can shore up this defense. I need someone that's going to hold the offense accountable when they do dumb things, because you have a quarterback prone to doing dumb things. And I would say, McDermott, if you really want to be a coach, we can let you go. But if you've been a big part of this organization, you've brought us out of a rut that we were in for a long time, what would you think about being the assistant general manager and learning that side? If you want to go back to coaching, you can. But why don't you learn while you're still on payroll through 2027 and see what he wants to do? He's an older guy, so it would make sense if he wanted to move up. Say, hey, you can only go so far as a coach. Only one coach a year is going to win the Super Bowl. And sometimes guys can only coach to this level. Like McDermott could go to the Titans, and he could bring them to a team that gets to the divisional round, and that's it. That's just where he stops. That's where his ceiling is, and that's fine. It's like that with some people. Some quarterbacks go out there and they're gonna win you the division, but they're not gonna get you any further. It's just like that sometimes. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I don't think McDermott is a bad person. I think that he's probably a decent evaluator of talent. It would be interesting to see him and Brandon Beane work together to bring more talent to that organization. As the assistant GM and as a guy that was a head coach, he probably can get more respect from a lot of players that he's interviewing that maybe they'd want to come on. But who knows? That's honestly what I would do if I was Buffalo. And Joe Brady has gotten head coaching interviews. He'll probably get some after this year. That's an opportunity to jump on since they didn't keep Brian Daboll, and I would have kept Daboll. I think Daboll overachieved with Daniel Jones last year, and he's paying for it this year. And he was kind of in a situation where I can go out and show how well of a coach I could be, but we're going to be stuck with this guy. And that's the kind of thing that happened. So that's my opinion about Frank Reich, about some things around the league, how things are shaping up. Like I said, I hope more owners get involved and want to sit there and say, hey, you know what? We're going to hold you guys accountable for what goes on here. We're not just an ATM that you can come out and we're just going to pay you to not do anything. If I'm Woody Johnson, I'm losing my mind at the Jets. Like, why am I paying offensive players if you're not going to go out there and put points on the board? I could literally find 11 janitors to go play offense and not put any points on the board. So why am I paying you guys millions of dollars to do it? And that's accountability. But unfortunately, Woody Johnson just doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would do that. And I can't understand how these guys operate like that when maybe the answer is they just don't care. They own football teams because they have fuck you money and they use it to get tax write-offs, and they have other business ventures that they actually care about. So, yeah. So the week of football is over. In 2 days it starts again. And I hope you motherfuckers are staying frosty. It's 58 degrees in South Florida, which makes me happy. Makes me wonder why I still live here, because I'd rather be like this than how hot it normally is. So I know if I'm cold, it must be cold up in Buffalo. Until then, stay frosty, motherfuckers. I'll see you on the other side.